evening. Welcome to the big story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Riza Diaz.
Tonight's big stories. Disgraced Mayor Alice Guo says she's not the mastermind behind Pogo's criminal activities, but just a victim herself. She goes behind closed doors with senators for a tell-all session.
House lawmakers call Vice President Sara Duterte's behavior a betrayal of public trust after she snubs for the second time the House plenary debates on her proposed budget for next year.
And the Philippine Navy monitors a record number of Chinese warships at various features in the West Philippine Sea, especially at the Escoda Show, which the BRP Teresa Magbanwa left just over a week ago.
Alice Guo has denied being the mastermind of illegal pogos in the country. In fact, she says she's a victim too.
Guo told senators she will reveal who the most guilty party was in an executive session, and so off they went behind closed doors this afternoon.
But before that, Senator Risa Hontiveros presented several photos of a former PNP chief together with the Pogo personalities. And that former chief is Benjamin Acorda. Camille Samonte with the big story tonight.
Your Honor, hindi pa ako mastermind. Masasabi ko po, isa po akong victim.
This was how Alice Guo characterized herself during the latest hearing on Pogos in the Senate. But when asked if she was just a front for syndicates, Guo denied it. The former Bamban mayor added that by now, senators know who exactly is behind the illegal Pogos in the country.
Your Honor, hindi naman po siya ginamit. Ano po akong tao, helpful akong tao. Kung meron man po, yun lang po. Pero sa mga activities po na ginawa or sa mga allegations po, wala po akong kinalaman. I think sa tagal po na investigation, alam na rin po ng committee po, especially chaired by our Madam Chairman, who's really at the back of everything po.
Guo reportedly said she is ready to name the so-called most guilty behind illegal pogos. Later on, she was granted her request for an executive session to reveal everything she knows. But it almost didn't push through because Guo's camp requested to postpone it until Thursday.
Don't tell us when to hold the executive session. They say, and that's what we are offering. Start now.
The executive session did push through, but the details of Guo's disclosures were not made public. Before that, Sual Pangasinan Mayor Dong Kalugay was also questioned about his alleged withdrawal of 500 million pesos. After last week's Senate hearing, a claim the mayor denied. He said he is willing to sign a bank waiver to prove his innocence.
Hindi po totoo, Your Honor, po yung mga hundreds million po na withdraw po, Your Honor.
But do you have hundreds of millions na pag-aari o salapi, Your Honor?
Wala po tayong ganyan, Your Honor.
Senator Joel Villanueva pointed out that Kalugay's salary was not significant when he was still a policeman, which led to the question of where the money came from. Kalugay responded that his family has a business which grew after he retired from the police force. In addition to Tony Yang, the brother former presidential economic advisor Michael Yang, a photo also showed Kalugay with Alice Guo's brother Wesley and former PNP chief Benjamin Acorda. Kalugay explained that they visited Acorda at Camp Crame because he used to be the chief of Suwal Police.
Nagpicture lang po, tapos umalis na po kami. Hindi ko po kilala po yung...
Nagpa-picture lang kayo kay Chief?
Opo, Your
Ano ba
Honor.
ang pakay nyo? Bakit kayo pumunta?
Namasyal lang po kami, Your Honor. At ang sabi ng mga kasamahan ko po, gusto po nilang makita po si PNP.
Acorda will be invited to the next Senate hearing. In a statement, the former PNP chief said he loves the country and the PNP organization, adding that he only did what was necessary as a Filipino and as a police officer. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
A disbarment complaint has been filed against former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. The case was filed by lawyer Melvin Matibag, former acting cabinet secretary of the Duterte administration, at no less than the Supreme Court. This is over Roque's social media posts, including a deepfake video of President Bongbong Marcos supposedly using drugs the so-called Polvoron video, which went viral. In a statement, Matibag said lawyers should not knowingly or maliciously post, share, or disseminate false information under the revised Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability. In response, Roque called the disbarment complaint against him a desperate act of attention. He said the video supposedly involving the president is a national security matter and posting it is protected by free speech. He added the authenticity and the content of the video deserve widespread discussion. Let's try to get more details on this. We have with us tonight on The Big Story, Attorney Melvin Matibag. Good evening, Attorney. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Good evening to all your viewers.
Okay, Attorney, just to be clear, is the Polvoron video, the so-called Polvoron video, the main basis for this disbarment complaint? And I was trying to look for the origins of that post. Si former presidential spokesperson po ba yung original poster of that? Can you clarify that? And if that is not the only post, what other posts are your basis for this complaint?
Well, first of all, hindi lang naman yung posting ng doon sa deepfake na yan yung pinag-uusapan natin. And besides, it doesn't matter whether he is the original na nag-post or kung siya yung gumawa, but it looks like siya yung una nag-claim niyan eh. Ang sinasabi na tungkol doon sa covered by free speech, national security, hindi naman kasi yan na floating na idea. It's something that is fabricated. It's been proven already. So doon sa under the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability, very strong yung warning dyan ng Supreme Court, reminding all the officers of the court, all the lawyers, to act as such na dapat validated dyan. Kasi if you will look at it, abogado ka eh, magaling ka na lawyer, then you will come out with a pronouncement na hindi naman validated, or worse is kung ginawa mo pa to, pineke mo. So yung makakapanood nito ng mga ordinaryong tao, may tendency na maniwala dito eh. So this is something that I'm doing in order to protect the integrity of the legal profession. We are given the privilege to practice law. So ibig sabihin dapat yung standard namin mataas eh. And this is the opportunity of the Supreme Court to come out with the rules. Paano ba natin i-interpret tong Section 38 na bagong rules ng CPRA na recently lang in-implement. So ito talaga yung main reason dito.
Okay,
and I think this is also the opportunity of Attorney Harry Roque to explain kung ano yung take niya rito sa situation na to.
yeah, would you have to prove malicious intent in probably the sharing of that post? Because paano kung naloko lang din po si presidential spokesperson, hindi niya alam na deepfake yun, kumbaga may implication lang na doon sa post na shinare niya. And bukod po doon, nabanggit nga, parang may several social media posts. Ano pa po yung mga kasama doon?
I'm sorry, but I cannot discuss the details of the disbarment because the very nature of disbarment case is confidential. Ano? So kaya lang nabanggit yan doon sa deepfake na yan kasi that is something really public. No? So yun na nga, doon sa binabanggit mo, ito na yung opportunity nga ni Secretary Roque na ipaliwanag kung bakit may ganon. And I think it's an opportunity also for the Supreme Court to come out with a clear jurisprudence para alam namin mga abogado kung ano yung dapat sundan namin, how to behave when dealing with social media and posting issues and mga ideas na maiisip namin.
But isn't disbarment a little bit severe for posting something online?
Alam mo kasi yung abogado, binigyan ka ng poder eh. Mataas ang standard na binibigay sa'yo eh. Because you're given enough power. So dapat mindful ka. Ano yung magiging mga effects nito, yung ramifications sa mga gagawin mong action. So ang Supreme Court naman, if they feel na hindi dapat disbar, suspension lang, or kung ano mang penalty, they will be the one to decide on this matter.
A lot of people share that post, though, Attorney. Are you going to go after them? Why single out Harry Roque?
Well, sabi ko nga dito, ang pinanggagalingan nito yung Section 38. That's a new rule under the CPRA. So, iba yung standard sa ordinary citizen at saka sa abogado.
Mm-hmm. Attorney Roque is calling this call for disbarment as a desperate act of attention. Your comment on that?
He can do it the way he wants to view it, and I think yung attention niya nakuha nga. So, I think he just have to wait and see the actual complaint for disbarment, and that's the time probably that he can comment and do whatever he wants to do sa disbarment na yan, because he will be given 10 days from the time he receive the copy to answer the disbarment. Because I know that the Supreme Court takes every disbarment proceedings seriously. And ako, also as a lawyer, hindi naman ako pwedeng basta na lang mag-file ng frivolous na disbarment. Because I also have a responsibility under my attorney's oath in the CPRA.
Attorney, since we have you, let's talk politics a little bit, if that's okay. You know, the last time we spoke to you, you were still the SecGen of PDP Laban. I know you've since resigned, but I never found out the real story behind it. Why did you step down?
Well, I have several reasons. No? One of that is sumulat ako I'm writing an article every Friday sa Daily Tribune, and I wrote that article strongly objecting to the confidential fund para sa Office of the Vice President and sa DepEd. But hindi lang naman sa ahensya na yon, but all the other civil agencies. And I think hindi yata naging maganda yung pagtanggap doon. And I think there will be a conflict kung I will remain as PDP defending that position, which I don't believe legally and personally. So that's one of the reasons. And other than that, my wife joined the political party of Lakas, and I feel that hindi naman maganda na I be belonging to another political party na medyo hindi aligned doon sa principle and beliefs ng partido na sinalihan ng aking may bahay.
So you're both with Lakas now? Is that correct?
No, I'm not. I don't belong to any party right now. Wala po tayong political party sa ngayon.
Okay.
I'm now a private practitioner po.
Okay, got it, attorney. What was your issue with the use of the confidential funds specifically?
Well, for me, hindi dapat may confidential fund ng mga civil agencies. The confidential fund belongs only to the agencies that tasked with intelligence gathering. Ngayon, kung kailangan ng OVP tsaka ng DepEd na magkaroon ng confidential data or yung mga security data, then they can coordinate with the other agencies in charge with doing or the mandate to gather intelligence reports.
Pati po ba yung Office of the President, dapat wala ding confidential funds? Kasi, kumbaga, hindi naman sila yung main agency na...
No, but, very simple, no? The President is the Commander-in-Chief, so he's in charge of the military force. So, kailangan yan. And in all other jurisdictions, ang Office of the President, meron naman eh. So, that's the basis na rin.
I guess it's all a little bit curious, attorney, because you are, or can I say were, a former Duterte ally. You served in former President Rodrigo Duterte's cabinet. And now it seems you're on the other side. Is that fair to say? Attorney Matibag. Did I lose him, or he just doesn't want to answer?
Suddenly we became
we
so
lost
quiet.
I think we lost it. I'm trying to find out.
Oh, there he
Okay,
is.
okay, so we have him. He's not trying to evade the answer. Attorney Matibag, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. We lost you for a little bit there.
No, there's no other side for me because I think I served the Duterte administration well. I followed this direction. Sabi naman niya, you should always be on the side of what is lawful, what is good, what is just, and what is truthful. So nandun lang naman tayo.
Okay.
Hindi naman tayo nagte-take side.
But we do know your wife, Representative Maria Rene Matibag, is with
Yes.
Lakas CMD, and you also, I saw in a presser that you decided to leave PDP Laban because of her interest as well.
Well, that is something personal. Pero yun ang mga decision ng asawa ko as to her legislative agenda or agenda niya sa distrito niya, sa kanya yun. But yun naman sa akin, as a lawyer, I think I also have an obligation as an officer of the court. Saka kung ano yung positioning ko, that is my own positioning also.
Okay, having said all of that about confidential funds, can you weigh in on what's happening at the lower house right now, wherein the vice president has flat out refused to appear and defend the OVP budget? She's only appeared once, and we all know what happened there, and that was during at the committee level. But even at the plenary, we're still, or the House lawmakers are still waiting for her to turn up, and they haven't gotten answers to a lot of their questions. Can you weigh in on that, please?
Well, I think that is a problematic situation with VP Sara. That is her mandate. She should defend the budget of her office. And she should remember, being a lawyer also, there's a doctrine in political law that the powers of Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, is plenary in nature. When you say plenary, they can ask anything and everything under the sun. And the duty of the representatives, of the lawmakers, are to ask questions. At ang duty naman nung nag-a-attend as a resource person is to provide answer. So hindi ko naman maintindihan bakit sasabihin mo irrelevant yun when you are discussing the budget and looking at the behavior, how you spend people's money. Because at the end of the day, it's all about accountability and fiscal responsibility. So tingin ko dapat naman sagutin niya. That is her responsibility to answer questions. Hindi naman pwede na dahil ayaw mo lang, you will give your reasons na ayaw kong sumagot.
Do you think it's enough basis, her refusal to answer these questions, enough basis for impeachment?
Ako naman, on that note, palagay ko naman, hindi naman ganun pa yan, tumaabot pa sa impeachable na offense because malinaw naman yung sinasabi sa Constitution kung ano impeachable, culpable violation. Pero kung tuloy-tuloy na ganyan at paulit-ulit, series of events, siguro, we can analyze it. Pero right now, yung mandate niya, kailangan niya sigurong tindigan at isagot sa mga nagtatanong kung ano yung dapat na sagutin niya sa mga tanong ng Kongreso.
As a former Duterte official attorney, of course, you know her too. I'm talking about Vice President Sara Duterte. Has she always been like this? Would you say it's everything that's happening is reflective of who she is?
Well, actually, hindi naman kasi parte ng PDP laban si VP Sara. She was never a part of the PDP laban. She's neither part of the Duterte administration at that time. But of course, she's the presidential daughter. Pero somehow, alam naman natin, may mga influence naman siyang ginagawa dyan. So, I think during the Duterte administration, she's one of the influential and powerful individual. You have to remember, nung tinanggal si former Speaker Alvarez, siya talaga yung author niyan. So, makita naman natin how she moves. Siguro, baka ngayon, akala niya the same pa rin na kayang gawin yung mga gusto niyang gawin sa administration na to. We have to realize that there's always a different mandate. Ang sa akin po dito, yung kanina nga in relation to tinatanong ninyo kung kabilang panig ako, I'm always for the mandate of the people. So if the people voted for somebody, kailangan po irespeto po natin yon. Proteksyonan natin at all costs.
She was the instigator of the ouster of former House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez. Therefore, what's the implication there? You're saying that she's more
Well, yun yung participation niya po sa Duterte administration, yung mga ganun na bagay. Pero as to the governance, hindi ko naman po siya nakita na involved sa governance. Pero ang sinasabi ko rito, siguro, ang pinanggagalingan nitong sinasabi ko if she wants to get something during the Duterte administration, she's getting it. She's getting it done. So ngayon yung hindi niya nakukuha yung mga gusto niyang makuha, it's creating a problem, a scenario. So yun po yung pinanggagalingan siguro ng isang medyo hindi pagkakasundo doon sa mga pag-appear niya po sa Kongreso.
Sinasabi niya na political persecution daw ito. Actually, today, there has been talk of impeachment. No? Si former Senator Sonny Trillanes mentioned on Storycon that there are talks with the House. The betrayal of public trust is grounds for impeachment.
Well, it remains to be seen. Wala pa naman po So, lahat naman po talaga, I mean, you say politika to, everything is politics. That is our problem with our country. We don't have political stability. Katatapos pa lang ng election, iniisip na kung sino susunod na presidente. So, dapat po siguro hindi ganun.
Attorney, what about the surprise visit by Vice President Sara to former Vice President Leni? Do you have any thoughts on that? Sabi ng Robredo camp, it was very intentional on Vice President Sara's part. What do you think?
Well, it's good that she visited the former President, Vice President Leni Robredo kasi alam ko, nung turnover dapat, nung June 30, 2022, hindi nga siya sumipot, hindi sila nagkita. So probably she can get some advice kay Vice President Leni how to behave as a Vice President. Kasi mas maliit nga budget ni Vice President Leni noon, 400 million lang. So alamin po natin, if there are political realignment or whatever, it remains to be seen. Pero isang oras sila nag-meeting, I don't think it's just personal visit. So, malaman po natin, sila lang po makakasagot yan.
Wait, your wife running again for Congresswoman of San Pedro, Laguna?
I think, yeah, she's running for re-election po.
Okay.
Wait lang, I was gonna say, that's 2 years too late. You're saying
Getting
that she was,
advice. Yeah,
you're
seeking
saying
for-
she's getting advice
for
to how to
counsel.
act as a vice president. Di ba 2 years, a little too late, 2 years too late? She's been in position 2 years.
Sometimes yung realization naman po natin talaga it's late. Eh. So, tingnan po natin. Pero
May
I'm
empathy
just
na
second
kasi.
guessing it.
Oo, may empathy na.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. We have Attorney Melvin Matibag.
All right, thank you.
All right, going back to today's Senate hearing, senators were also able to interrogate another personality being tagged to offshore gaming, this time with Tony Yang, the brother of Michael Yang, former President Duterte's economic advisor, and himself a wanted man. Full story from our mobile journal, Francis Orsio.
Alam mo, ko tayo nitong Chinese national to. Marunong ka ba Tagalog at magbisaya eh? Kunwari lang, hindi ka marunong eh.
There was a new character who turned up at the Senate's 14th hearing into Pogos. Businessman Tony Yang. Tony is the elder brother of Michael Yang, who in turn was the former economic advisor to President Rodrigo Duterte. Michael is another personality being linked to Pogos. Tony Yang has been living in the Philippines since 1998 or 1999 and claims that he only speaks Chinese. That's why he brought an interpreter to the hearing.
Di ako makapaniwala. Quarter of a century na kayo dito sa Pilipinas, sa Cagayan de Oro included, at di pa kayo marunong mag-Bisaya fluently o Filipino fluently. Dili ako buang para maniwala dyan.
Tagalog, Bisaya, maing kunti-kunti.
According to Yang, he was born in Fujian, China and does not carry a Philippine passport. But he does have a Filipino birth certificate, which his grandfather registered back in 2004. The older Yang supposedly did this to facilitate business in the Philippines. Aside from a fake birth certificate, it was also revealed in the Senate inquiry that Tony Yang goes by different names. In his alien registration form, he is Yang Jansin, and Antonio Maestado Lim and Antonio Lim in his driver's license and tax identification card.
You have profited from changing your name and your nationality dito sa iba't ibang submissions nyo. At your convenience. Talagang for convenience. Gaya ng sinabi nyo tungkol sa lolo nyo. You're only Filipino when it benefits you.
According to the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission, Tony is a silent but sharp operator. He allegedly runs the family's businesses, legitimate or otherwise.
Siya po yung parang nagpapatakbo ng mga businesses, ng mga Yangs.
Pati Pogo businesses.
Yes, ma'am. Pati po yung Pogo business niya. Even yung malalaking business nila na nasa Cagayan de Oro.
Aling mga malalaki po ito?
Yung Sanjan, Steel, nasa kanya po. And then yung hotel and yung rice mill.
And it's a vast and secretive empire that the Yangs established in CDO.
They tried to establish yung parang kingdom nila, yung lugar na yun, ma'am. Parang hindi ka pwedeng magpasok ng business doon sa area na yun, ma'am, kung hindi ka dadaan sa kanya.
And Tony Yang also supposedly mingled with people in high places, including officials from the PNP, as high as former police chief Benjamin Acorda. Referring to photos of him with Acorda, Yang said they were taken during an event by the Cagayan Business Federation.
It's not actually a meeting. It was just us visiting the head of police in Cagayan during that time. Akoda. Okay. I call him Akola or Akoda.
He's the former chief PNP.
Yang was also asked about his relationship with former President Duterte. He said he has only seen the chief executive once, during a meeting with a Chinese businessman. There are at least 7 corporations with SEC documents registered under Tony Yang's name. That's aside from 9 other businesses traced to his tax identification number. Of particular interest to senators is Yang's Shanje Steel Corporation in CDO. believed to be a Pogo hub and said to have more than 100 Chinese employees.
Hindi pa po namin napapasok, ma'am, yung lugar. But yung intel report po na nakarating sa akin, and of course yung mga documents na nakita namin, it all points to a Pogo operation.
He does play a major role sa criminal networks ng Pogo doon.
Yes, ma'am.
Then there's Pogo service provider Oro One, where Yang is president. His initial explanation, he only helped Oro One secure a business permit. Later on, Tony admitted that he is an incorporator of the company. Today was supposed to be the 14th and final hearing of the panel, but senators were left with more questions after today, which means they will have to hold more hearings in the coming weeks. Mobile journalist Francis Orsho, we are One News.
Up next, a record number of Chinese warships have been spotted in the West Philippine Sea. What does this mean? We'll discuss this further with Benjamin Blandin, Associate Researcher for Gordian Knot and Project Sea Light, when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Aaron Enriquez has a story.
From 10 in the morning on Monday until the wee hours of the morning today, Tuesday, congressmen waited for Vice President Sara Duterte, or at the very least, an authorized representative from her office. Lawmakers have been patiently waiting to ask the OVP about its budget and programs for 2025 during the plenary deliberations at the House. But no authorized official came. Kabataan Party List Representative Raul Manuel says he is no longer surprised by Duterte's attitude, given her defiant behavior towards lawmakers.
This is a clear betrayal of public trust, as every elected official is accountable to the electorate.
It all started when the Vice President refused to justify her proposed budget of more than 2 billion pesos next year before the House Appropriations Committee.
I'd like to forgo the opportunity to defend the budget in a question and answer format.
Then, in the second round of deliberations by the same panel, Duterte was a no-show altogether. In a statement sent to House Speaker Martin Romualdez, she said that the OVP defers entirely to the discretion and judgment of the Appropriations Committee. Besides, the VP said her office has already presented its plans and projects and has submitted the necessary documents to the lower chamber. And finally, during a separate inquiry by the Good Governance and Accountability Committee, Sara refused to even take the oath and left after a few minutes. Betrayal of public trust is one of the grounds for impeachment. But one Rider Party List Representative Roque Gutierrez says that's not even a consideration now.
To be purely technically po, it is in a way betrayal of public trust. But whether it would amount to impeachment, masyadong malayo naman po yun.
In a press conference, a Cobicol Party List Representative Jill Bongalon floated another idea.
We can ask her to step down as the Vice President. Kasi nakikita natin hindi naman po siya dumadalo sa mga pandinig dito po sa Kongreso. So, ano po ibig sabihin nito? Hindi na po siya interesado at mas pinili niya pa po bumunta sa isang beach resort kaysa dumalo po dito sa pagdinig sa kanya pong budget.
The OVP has issued a statement saying the VP has been on the road talking to the people about the current events in our country in Vinsons, Daet Camarines Norte, and Legazpi, all in Bicol. Wherever she is now, the House is giving Duterte another opportunity to show up and defend the OVP's budget.
As head of department, you have to go through the process. And this is just bigger. This is not even about her. This is about the office of the vice president, the second highest position of the land.
And this could be the OVP's last chance. If Duterte or her representative are still absent tomorrow, the lower house will take it upon itself to determine how much the OVP is getting for next year. Lawmakers have a deadline of September 25, Wednesday, to pass the 2025 General Appropriations Act bill before they go on a month-long recess. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Now, although they downplay talk of impeachment, that phrase, betrayal of public trust, is crucial. Betrayal of public trust is a catch-all provision in the 1987 Constitution that is a specific ground for impeachment for the President, Vice President, members of the Supreme Court, members of the Constitutional Commission, and the Ombudsman. Remember that a couple of weeks ago, House Majority Leader Manix Dalipe had already warned that Vice President Sara Duterte may be liable for graft if she is unable to explain satisfactorily how she spent her confidential funds in 2022. Now, former Senator Sonny Trillanes, speaking to our sister program Storycon today, also said he's in serious talks with lawmakers to endorse an impeachment complaint against the Vice President.
Meron ba kayong seryosong kausap sa Kongreso para mag-sponsor ng impeachment complaint?
Pero po, just a matter of kaya nga siya pumupunta, kaya nga siya naghahanap ng kakampi. That's what I'm saying. Everybody should be more circumspect at this point, no? Kasi the optics are not good. Naghahanap siya ng kakampi, politically isolated na siya. So the last thing we want is masanitize yung image niya. Yun po yan. That's where I'm coming from.
As for the warrant of arrest from the International Criminal Court, that was supposed to come out this month for the elder Duterte, Trillanes said that's been delayed.
Base po sa aking informasyon, mga late November, early December pa ho yan.
Over in the West Philippine Sea, the number of Chinese vessels being monitored has jumped to 251, the highest by far this year. That's from the Philippine Navy data covering the period from September 17 to 23. The week before, they counted only 157 Chinese vessels in the area. More alarming is that the biggest number of Chinese warships has been monitored in Escoda or Sabina Shoal, which the BRP Teresa Magbanwa left just a little over a week ago. At Escoda, the Navy tallied 55 Chinese maritime militia vessels, 16 Coast Guard vessels, and 11 People's Liberation Army Navy warships. Navy spokesperson Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad said this is the first time they've monitored 11 warships there. As for the other features in the West Philippine Sea, in Ayungin Shoal, they counted 62 Chinese maritime militia vessels, or CMMs, 9 Coast Guard vessels, or CCGs, and 1 Research Survey Vessel, or CRS. Iroquois Reef had 38 Chinese maritime militia vessels present, and near Pag-asa Island, 1 CCG, 23 CMMs, and 1 CRS were spotted. Meanwhile, 17 Chinese maritime militia vessels were reported near Julian Felipe, or Whitsun Reef. At Bajo de Masinloc, also known as Carvo Shoal, there were 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels, 2 PLA Navy warships, 7 CMMs, and 1 research vessel. And finally, 3 PLA Navy warships were seen near Licas Island, while 2 CMMs were monitored near Panata Island, also known as Lankiam Cay. The Navy attributes the sudden spike in the number of Chinese vessels to better weather conditions. They added that each time there is a weather disturbance, the number of Chinese ships decreases, only to climb again once the weather improves.
What do we make of China's growing presence at various features in the West Philippine Sea? Well, let's dive into this with geopolitical analyst Benjamin Blandin. He's also associate researcher for Gordian Knot and Project Sea Light, and he's also a PhD candidate in geopolitics, focusing on the phenomena of asymmetric warfare in the South China Sea at the Paris Catholic University.
Thank you very much.
He's live in studio with us again today. Okay, so that was a whole lot of numbers she just threw out. We're not going to go back into them, but I will highlight the fact that there's the biggest number, they are seeing the biggest number of warships
Absolutely.
at Escoda or Sabina Shoal. We're talking about 11 Chinese warships, 16 Coast Guard vessels, and 55 maritime militia vessels from China. What did you make of that?
I make that it's the biggest number by far, always in the West Philippine Sea, but you shouldn't think it's only the Philippines, because just a week ago it was exactly the same in the EEZ of Malaysia. So, and for the first time, China deployed military vessels and maritime militia vessels also in the EEZ of Malaysia. So it's quite a trend, and it just matched with what we have observed since the second semester of 2023, with a growing presence and assertiveness constantly increasing of China.
You don't reckon it's a sign that they are trying to take de facto control of Sabina Shoal, for instance?
What I think is that when you look at a map, Sabina Shoal is actually just right to Second Thomas Shoal. So you can see the connection between the two. And it's just in the trend of the past year where China has been more and more present to attack the interests of the Philippines.
The PLA Navy ships are present in two locations, in Scarborough Shoal and Escoda Shoal. And in Ayungin, for one, there's no PLA Navy ship. Does that reflect, I guess, the escalation or the tension in the area, or the geopolitics of China, for example?
Yeah, I think personally that it's not always connected. Sometimes they are very present at a given place. Sometimes they are very present at another place, not just, as I said, Philippines, but also Malaysia or Vietnam. And sometimes we fail to understand the logic behind it. But what we see is that they are, the only common aspect is that they are more and more present. That is what we
Don't
observe.
overthink it.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
Yes.
Okay, so it isn't, as some people had suggested, that they're homing in on certain features in the South China Sea. It's just the fact that they have deployed a record number of ships everywhere in the South China Sea, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't want to afraid anyone, but based on research, the core maritime militia is 200 vessels, but the professional sort of maritime militia is 1,000 vessels, but they can gather up to 8,000. So at the moment, they are still way below what they could do if they wanted.
Right, but don't you think this, the sudden increase of number is alarming?
Yes, but I think there's sometimes a share of frustration. They try to submit the Philippines. It's not working, so they try different techniques, different places, different diversity of ships. It's constantly moving. It's really
They probably are trying to see also the reaction of the Philippines in
Yes.
relation to those movements.
I would say the Philippines have been quite measured over the past decade. The country is trying to defend itself, but I couldn't. Contrary to what China says, I wouldn't call the Philippines provocative, yes.
You believe that to be true in Escoda Shoal, because when the BRP Teresa Magbano was there, Ray Powell was saying here on the show that there wasn't any particular interest in the Escoda Shoal. It wasn't even mentioned in the arbitral award, but the basis of the BRP Teresa Magbano being there was all this talk about the possibility that China was doing an artificial island building in that area. But do you think that kind of escalated it, or that wasn't provocative at all for you?
From my research, China is not interested in the fish in the EEZ of the Philippines. It's not even interested in the oil and gas. Just very recently, they did discoveries off the coast of Guangzhou and off the coast of Tsingtao, so in the east of China. So they don't need the oil and gas of the Philippines. So you keep asking yourself, if they are not interested in these resources and these resources, why are they here? Why are they doing what they do? And I think it has to do with something completely different, as some people think, which has more to do about losing face on the side of China. They have pretended for so long that they own this place, that they cannot go back. They cannot stand still. They need to keep pushing more. Bringing more pressure on this area.
Interesting word you used there, pretended. Sorry, you're saying they did exploration in Tsingtao, and the other one is?
Yes, so there is the Bohai Sea and off the coast of Guangzhou.
Guangzhou. And they discovered oil and gas
yes,
there?
Yes, very, very huge quantities of them.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. But with as far as Escoda Shoal is concerned, at the moment, of course, the BRP Teresa Magbano has left. And just
Well,
now,
to be replaced.
in fact, just now, sources are telling us that the replacement has arrived there, and it's the BRP Gabriela Silang.
Yes.
And what's interesting about the Gabriela Silang is that it's actually French built.
Yeah, totally. Built by
So-
OCA Shipbuilding, which is at ADS 2204 in Manila from Wednesday to
Which
to
you're
Friday.
organizing, which we'll talk about
Yes.
shortly. But okay, so what's so special about it being built by the French? Can it stay out there longer?
Well, I think most of the ships in the Philippine Navy or Coast Guard, they can perfectly operate for weeks or months at a time. I wouldn't say that is the core. It's pretty much the quality of the sensors that are inside. It's really the flagship. They are pretty proud of it, very happy with what they've been delivered, from what I heard. And they even have a mock-up of it at the show, so I guess it's for a good reason.
We've talked to a lot of people about this, about whether or not the Magbanwa should have left Escoda Shoal just like that, right? I mean, we understand
Yes.
that it's stayed out there nearly 5 months, longer than expected, but still, some people believe that there's just leaving it without a replacement
Yes.
right away left the area vulnerable. What do you think?
Some people complain about what you said and they wish the boat would remain longer. But actually for a Filipino vessel, it's a very, very long time. I heard it was 5 months, around
That's
5
right.
months.
Yeah,
It's
nearly 5
exceptional
months.
given the average duration at sea of most ships. So it was a good thing that he stood there for so long. If I was in charge, I'm not, but if I was, I would have probably sent the reinforcement before retiring the first boat. But so far it has done its mission.
The group, the think tanks that you move around in, is that generally what they're saying as well? Do they find that this is,
We didn't have a really official position on that point, but I think we were very satisfied of the mission that had been accomplished.
And having the Gabriela Silang out there, what is the expectation now?
I think it's a sign. You don't send your flagship for no reason. You want to send a message. You know that China is very good at sending message. America is very good at responding to some of this message. But I think it's good that the Philippines does a step forward.
The spokesperson of the National Maritime Council, Alexander Lopez, said that the Philippines will stop disclosing the movements of their vessels. Do you think that we should have done that from the onset? I mean, what do you think about that?
We can draw parallel about that, about the conflict in Ukraine. At first, the authorities there were communicating a lot of, we have received this and this from such and such ally, we are about to do this operation. It kind of, for me, a good aspect in the short run to mobilize the population so that the government is determined. But on the long run, of course, you shouldn't give your adversary all the keys to what you're doing or planning ahead.
Should the Philippine government have asked for help resupplying the Magbanwa, given that the U.S. has extended help? As the U.S. has already said that they were happy to escort the boats to resupply the Magbanwa. I'm sure we could have counted on the French too, or Australia, or Japan, and so on and so forth.
I don't think France has enough boats to do this kind of operations, or not too often. In the case of the US, I think it was important for the Philippines to do it on its own. Otherwise, it would always give this image that goes in the sense of what China is saying. Oh, the Philippines is a puppet of the US. It's provoking China on behalf of the US. So doing it on their own is a good thing, in my opinion.
It could have done it multilaterally, though, with other countries.
I would imagine that it's possible to do a resupply exercise, multilateral resupply exercise. That would make sense, but maybe 1, 2, 3 times a year, not on a systematic basis. And by the way, I think it's quite recent that the US proposed to do it, because for a long time they practiced strategic ambiguity with the Philippines about the MDT. So it's a good thing that they are stepping up.
Well, speaking of doing it alone, it is budget season, and there has been deliberations on the revised Armed Forces of the Philippines Modernization Program, and apparently their proposal for 245 billion budget has been reduced. Only 75 billion has been approved. While that is bigger than the 2024 number, it is still below minimum. It is at 1.83%. Compared to GDP. I mean, what message does that send? Like, we have increased the budget, but still.
Yes,
falls way below.
Well,
what
we
it
have
should be.
events of this kind in Europe too, so I wouldn't be the one to lecture the Philippines. But what we see still is, if we remember about Horizon Phase 1 or Phase 2, there's been a long way. It's much more efficient today than it was at the beginning. Budgets can be lower than expected, but still we are at a plus, not at a minus compared to what should have been disbursed by the government. And we can still hope for discussions and hard negotiations at the Senate about this.
Well, DND Secretary Gilbert Chodoro said that globally, countries have their defense budget at 4% of GDP. And 2% being the minimum. Is that correct?
It's more complicated than this. In Europe, we are more around 2%, rather slightly below 2%, and we're heading to 2%. 4% is more very active militaries like the Russian ones or the Americans. Yes, but in Europe, the standard is 2%.
Those who are at war.
Yes.
Currently, there's 251 Chinese vessels. Depending on the weather, too, it could decrease. Then they go back. Sometimes there's more. Are we expecting more based on your research and the flow, the pattern, perhaps, since you've seen this also in other areas?
Based on data that I have access to, what we know is that 250 is a max, so it's 250 ships in the whole area. But if you look at the number of ships, of maximum number of ships per feature, so for example, Sabina Shoal, Whitsun Reef, and Iroquois Reef, there we have reached a max of around 100 boats stacked together at one place. So it's more a matter of how they occupy than how much ships you have to occupy. Because if they are moving around, they are much more dangerous than if they are stacked. So yeah, you need to take different aspects into account. And they are the more dangerous where it's a mix of Navy, Coast Guard, and Maritime Militia. Because there, you know that they have a plan. If it's only Maritime Militia, they are here to occupy, sort of occupy the place. They don't do anything. But if it's a mix, then it starts being dangerous. Because you will have Maritime Militia first, Coast Guard later, and then at the very last, Navy, just to show if it's escalating, they are ready to go.
Benjamin, you specialize in asymmetric warfare, and you've been trying to, raise awareness of it to Philippine officials here. What's the response been like?
Actually, I was quite pleased because the last time you invited me, it was just before I meet with General Browner, Commodore Tariela, and Admiral Dasi, quite a nice list of people. They were quite pleased about my research, especially about Vietnamese presence in the Spratlys. Well, I would say it's more peaceful than the Chinese one. But yes, I'm really eager to cooperate. I'm trying to communicate with as many experts, Jay Batong Bakal, Justice Carpio, and others.
Do you feel like there's enough awareness of it now, of asymmetric warfare?
I would say much more, for sure.
And what sort of message is China trying to send there?
Well, it's a bit of a complicated message because they are not saying exactly what they want. They never gave the coordinates of the dashes. They have updated or downgraded the number of dashes. They have never explained what exactly they claimed inside it. There's 7 different versions, maybe more. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a version. Ministry of Defense has another version. Such think tank or such university has another version. But we still don't know which one is a good one. So that's very frustrating. So I keep wondering, do they do it in purpose, or is it just random like that they have so many ways to see the same thing?
You would have oversight over the movements in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea. Do you think we're maximizing our vessels?
Over the past years, the government has ordered a lot of ships. The problem, in my opinion, is that it ordered the ships from too many origins. We have 9 countries providing it: Israel, France, Australia, the US, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, and Philippines
why
proper.
Is that a problem? Isn't it better to source from different countries?
It was a stopgap, what they call themselves a stopgap strategy, to put as many ships where it's needed. The problem is that when you order so many ships, you have too many radars, too many engines, too many everything. So it creates some kind of logistic nightmare that then creates difficulties in the short term. It's good. In the middle to long term, it's bad. So I think there are about 100 types of engines for the whole Navy and Coast Guard. And they have ordered so much, then now the Coast Guard doesn't even have its own maintenance capacity.
And you are in town again, lest we forget, for ADAS,
Yes.
Asian Defense and Security.
Yes.
Did I get that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, talk us through that. What to expect there?
Well, it's a big event. It's the 10th year, so it's an important anniversary. Tomorrow we will have a lot of VIPs coming, and I don't have the list, and if I had it, I couldn't share. But still, we are expecting a few tens of thousands of people to attend. Everything's almost ready, but by midnight it should be ready.
But this is a symposium of Asian defense ministers, is that correct?
Not exactly. So you have the show in itself, the defense exhibition show, and in parallel of the show, you will have two symposiums. So there's the first one that I co-organized, that is about the South China Sea and asymmetric warfare, and the second one, in cooperation with Stratbase, will be about the future of defense.
And how many people are you expecting?
As much as possible, but in between 100 and 200,000 people would be nice.
Has Manila always hosted this, or it's rotated around Asian cities?
No. ADAS is really in Manila. We have other events with other names in different capitals.
Is that open for all?
Yes, anyone can register.
And how do they register?
Online. Yeah, so we have a dedicated website. If you type just ADAS 2024, you will have it as first result. Yeah, ADAS 2024.
Anyone who's interested in defense and security in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And asymmetric warfare.
Yes.
And South China Sea. Pretty much
Filipino or Chinese?
Well,
or
first of all, we are going
French?
to have non-Western speakers. It was a very important point for me to have local speakers from the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, but also from East Asia, so Japan, Korea.
Anyone from China?
So it will, no.
No.
Well, for this time, it was not my choice, but we will not have any Chinese representative or Chinese speakers.
Them. Yeah, you should have invited them.
Oh, it was a break?
No,
would have been interesting. Would have been interesting to have that.
Well, he said it's the first time.
Defense
It's the first time that they're not attending.
I don't know for the previous years, but
okay.
to give an example, on the French or European defense exhibition show, they were not forbidden Chinese citizens to go on the show or to attend the conferences, but some areas were restricted. Here, the choice was made to totally close it.
We're not expecting any big announcements from the symposium, are we?
Oh, I couldn't tell.
Any new defense commitments to the Philippines?
Well, not from the side of France, but I know it's ongoing.
The VFA talks, you mean?
Yes.
The Visiting Forces
Exactly.
Agreement talks. Fantastic. Hopefully by the time we have you next, it'll be a done deal.
My pleasure.
We're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Benjamin Blandon, Associate Researcher for Gordian Knot and Project Sea Light. Before we go, just one last news item very quickly. The Congressional Spouses Foundation and the MVP group of companies have officially sealed their partnership to provide medical assistance to soldiers. Earlier today, MVP Group Chairman Manny V. Pangilinan, Congressional Spouses Foundation Chair Yeda Marie Romualdez, and House Speaker Martin Romualdez personally attended the signing of the manifesto at the House of Representatives. The aim of this partnership is to establish specialized facilities for the military, including a new casualty and cancer center being built at the AFP General Hospital. Phase 1 of the project will open in November, while Phase 2 is set for April 2025. Romualdez said this will greatly aid in the treatment of active soldiers and their families.
Through this initiative, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that our soldiers who bear the burden of defending our sovereignty receive the care and attention they need. It promises not only to address their immediate medical concerns, but also to provide long-term support.
MVP Group always been active in supporting the armed forces of the Philippines. Actually, dun sa may Mabuli sa northernmost part of the Philippines, we donated solar panels for the soldiers.
Oh, wow.
And then we send help all over to like in the Mindanao area.
That's something that's very well publicized, but very good to know, right?
Well, that's the show for us tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.